हाँ ठीक है. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Good afternoon. Um, yes. Yes, good afternoon, Kamran, and good afternoon, Kimti. So in the last class, we started the unit on reading and understanding, where we looked at reading for literary experience, reading for information, and reading to perform a task. All right. And then we looked at scanning, skimming, intensive reading, and extensive reading. And I believe we also looked at factors affecting reading skills. So I hope you're clear on scanning, skimming, intensive reading, and extensive reading, the differences, because you can get a theoretical especially based on what is skimming, what is scanning, or um, you can be asked to scan or skim the paragraph that is given in your paper and then paraphrase it. All right, so scanning is of course reading for a specific purpose with specific information in mind, and skinning is just like a cursory reading, right, for a general information, reading quickly to get like the basic idea about what the article is about. And intensive reading is of course when you're reading one article that perhaps a teacher might have sent you to study for the next class, right? And where you look at every nuance of the article, whether what the word meaning is, what is it trying to tell you, everything about the article that you think is important, right? So you read it very closely, you read it intensively. Whereas extensive reading is, of course, what we do with novels, what we do with texts, right? Pleasure reading, that even if we come across a word that we do not understand, we don't go into the nitty gritties of it. We leave it as it is and we just move on forward. And there are times when we do not understand what the sentence mean, but we don't really go into it to understand what the poet is trying to say or what the author is trying to say, or anyone. Where did the poet come from? Where did the author, what the author is trying to say, right? So extensive reading, right? Something that you do sometimes when even your teacher tells you that just have a look at the text. You may have some questions about it. You may not understand it at first, but just have a look at it. So that's extensive reading. Also, in the last class, I told you how to frame dialogues, right? Because a dialogic conversation can be part of your examination, right? It can come as a question, maybe that's based on the paragraph that is given to you. So do not forget that. We also talked about that a bit. Hello, Bhavna, Muskan, Anjali, Garima, Rohit, Nandini, Chetna, Snehal, Kanak, Anshika. Okay, and today we'll move on to part 2 of this particular chapter, which is reading and understanding, and we'll be looking at process of reading, guidelines for effective reading comprehension, and PSQ 5R reading technique, right? So let's begin with the process of reading. Yeah. So effective reading involves proper planning of reading so that the objectives of reading are successfully met. First of all, a reader must know her or his purpose of reading, specific or general, and then accordingly choose the appropriate strategy for the same, right? So for example, if we are given an article to read, then we need to read it with certain questions in mind, with a certain idea about why are we reading it, what is the outcome of this reading material that has been assigned to us, are there any questions that we should keep in mind while reading it, right? So these are to be kept in your mind whenever you are approaching a reading material, whenever you're approaching any material or any text or any article, right? So first is pre-reading activities. Pre-reading activities work better at the initial stages of learning a language, but nevertheless, they are fruitful otherwise at later stages of reading too. For example, before reading a story or an essay, talking about the title, subtitle, section, subsections, and guessing the main idea and sub-ideas of it. Warming up readers by asking them questions related to the theme, writer, writing technique, genre, and past knowledge of the topic, etc. Prepare a reader well for the main learning. Vocabulary and basic questions related to the topic also work effectually. So what constitutes a pre-reading activities? For example, I have given you an article to read for the next class, right? And now we start by talking about its title. Right? Sometimes it happens in your exams that you come across a paragraph and you're asked to suggest a title, right? So you read the text, understand what the text is about, what are the themes, how are the characters behaving in that text, and then somehow connect it to the topic that you have in mind about it, right? So, or if you already have an article with a topic that is there, with subtitles that is there, uh, as part of the article, then you are immediately preparing your mind about how to read it, about what to expect in that article. All right, so those are the pre-reading activities. You'll immediately look at the text, you'll immediately look at the subsections, try to familiarize yourself with the subsections, with the subtitles, with the titles, with the topic, with the length also. All right, then we move on to from pre-reading, we then read. While reading, multiple readings and in between stopping by a reader to check whether the purpose of reading is being fulfilled. If it is for pleasure, if she is getting the storyline properly, if for a specific purpose like getting the main idea of the content, has she got it, if it is she he like if he or she is able to comprehend what was expected after a reading, right? So whenever we have any content for reading, any material or any topic, novel, any text, so we already have that questions in mind. Now, when we are reading it, we are trying to answer those questions that we had in our pre-reading stage. What is the topic? What does it mean? What is the meaning of that word that is at the beginning of the introduction, right? So, if the topic is about macroeconomics, right? So, right at the beginning, you need to understand what macroeconomics is or what microeconomics is and what is the difference between the two, right? So whatever questions that you had in the pre-reading stage will be or should be answered while reading the article or the material that has been given to you, that has been assigned to you, or that you have chosen to read for pleasure. Okay, then post-reading activities. After reading, a reader may ask oneself certain questions, or some questions may be posed by a teacher in case of a guided reading. So that the reader is able to so that the reader is able to form an opinion about the content and can rewrite or present it, right? So for example, like I've said, I've given you an article on microeconomics or macroeconomics, and you have already formed the questions that you expect to be answered in the article. You read the article and then some of your questions have been answered, but then there are still some that remain unanswered, and there are some paragraphs or there are some terms that are perhaps related to economics or commerce that you did not understand. So that will constitute your post reading activities, that after reading the article, what did you think about it? Were you satisfied? Was the reading experience satisfactory? Were your questions answered? Were the questions that you have other than then the material related to the discipline, perhaps related to the subject of economics, were they answered or not, right? And how is this article going to connect to what you're doing in class, right? So we always do that whenever we pick an article or whenever we just even Google, right? So even for an exam, when we have, for example, if you are told that, this question is going to come in your exam, so right when you like when as soon as you hear it, you start thinking about the questions that you need to look for, that you need to Google, that you need to search, right? So that is your pre-reading activities, whatever that is there in your mind, and then you put in the keywords on the Google platform, right? And then you have a list of hits. So you start reading one by one, and then you see which article or which post on Google answers all of your questions. So while you read them, you're mentally making all the notes that, this question is being answered like this. This article is better because it answers this particular question. This article is better because this question that I have earlier is answered over here, right? And then you sit back and then you try to, maybe copy the link, then you try to make notes from that link, and you have these post reading activities when you're making your notes, where you're making your when you tell your friends, what, I was looking for this question, for this particular question, and I found it here, I found the answer, right? So pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading activity, something that we do every day, right? Something that we do every day, and that we do even as students the most, right? Then guidelines for effective reading. What are the guidelines for effective reading? The first guideline is, of course, defining the purpose. Why have we chosen a particular article to read, right? Or why has a teacher assigned you that particular article? What is the entire purpose of this article? So the objective of reading should be very specific. The reader should be clear by defining the purpose for which the matter is being read. At the same time, the objectives for which the material is being prepared must also be same. Careful comprehension of an individual's sense purpose will enhance the quality of his reading, right? So whenever I've given you an article, or whenever you have chosen a book, right? So you're defining a purpose. If you pick up a self-help book and you're going through something personally, or you want to learn about investing money, right? And you have chosen this particular book. So what is your purpose? You're defining your purpose. So from this particular book, I want to know where I can invest my money, right? How efficiently can I invest my money and get greater returns, right? So that is you defining a purpose with a reading material, right? And if an article that has been given to you as part of your syllabus, right? If a book has been given to you as part of your syllabus, so you're going to define that purpose. So for this exam, I have to read this book that has been prescribed in my syllabus, right? Aecc English as prescribed by Delhi University. I have to read this book because this is prescribed in the syllabus, and this will help me in my exam. Right, so you're defining your purpose, which is very, very specific. All right, then identifying the reading channel. The channel carries the message and thus influences the communication interaction. Books, letters, memoranda, reports, forms, newspapers, and magazines are different reading channels. The reading has to identify the most effective reading channels. If he has the alternatives, it is pertinent to note that reading channels have permanent records of messages which need to be referred to, right? So you are now identifying reading channels, right? For example, if I tell you, why did you find an article on this particular topic, that is microeconomics. Now, when I'm telling you to find it yourself, where will you go? You will go to the library, or you will go to Google to find a right article, to find an appropriate article that will help you understand the theory of microeconomics, right? Or if I tell you for English, why don't you tell me, or why don't you review the match, the IPL match that happened last night between Kolkata Knight Riders and Hyderabad Sunrisers? No, whatever those the names of the teams are. I don't know. Um, Hyderabad Sunrisers and Kolkata Knight Riders. I think those are the names. So let's continue with that. Yeah. So I'm telling you to review the last night's match. So what will you do? Where will you find that information? You'll find that information in the newspaper, right? You will find that information in the newspaper or on news channels, right? So where you have to identify the correct reading channel. Where are you going to find the information that you require? Is it in the newspapers? Is it in the articles? Is it sitting in the library, right? Is it on Google? Is it in the form of reports and forms? Is it in the form of letters or books? Right? So you have to identify the correct reading channel from which you can get the right information. Right? So we have defined the purpose and then we have identified the reading channel. Okay. And then we are moving to control interference. For effective reading, the reader should control all potential and actual interference of people and the environment. This includes the sources of noise, disturbance, physical setting, etc. If a reader cannot control these interferences, he cannot comprehend the material effectively. Right? So what does this mean? For effective reading, wherever you're reading, your exam's nearing, or you have an exam tomorrow, for example. So what are you going to do? You are going to find a place where you can concentrate, right? You're going to tell every family member of yours that please do not make any noise. You're going to tell your younger siblings, please do not make noise. I have got an exam tomorrow. So you're trying to control interference as much as possible so that you have an efficient or a reading session, right? So you are going to perhaps you'll go to the library, right? You'll find a place at your home which has minimum noise or any kind of external interference, right? So you'll control interference. You will prevent any kind of noise, disturbance, or physical interference that might hamper your reading. Then getting the reading of words and non-verbal symbols. What does this mean? All passages are created by words and non-verbal symbols. Reading and comprehension skills can be enhanced by carefully assigning meanings to words and non-verbal symbols, right? So because like I've said, reading is something that can be done by literate folk, right? As we are born, we are continuously learning the language, and reading is a skill that is learned. It is not naturally acquired, right? As a baby, we cannot start reading immediately. We learn how to put together words, whether it is A, B, C, right? We put together words, 3-letter words, CAT, then we move on to 4-letter words, then we move on to 5-letter words. So we are learning how to use language, right? Then we move on to the punctuation. We move on to what does a question mark mean, what does a full stop mean, what does a comma mean, right? So these are words and non-verbal symbols that we are learning, right? And later you will see, even in paraphrasing, oftentimes we use symbols for our own selves, right? There is, for an and, it is this. For writing with, we have an E with a hyphen on top of it, right? So these are these non-verbal symbols that help us in reading, right? And sometimes we are aware of it, sometimes we are not. And sometimes when these non-verbal symbols are part of the text, then you can be given an index at the back or at the front of the book, right? Which can help you understand these symbols better. So when you're reading, you are putting together alphabets to form words, and that is making you read, because that is what your intent is, to read a particular document or an article. So you're reading the words and the non-verbal symbols together to understand what the article is telling you. Then evaluate critically, right? A reader should keep a critical eye on the reading material. Without critical evaluation, the reader cannot carry on reading effectively. After evaluation, the reader shall be able to decide whether he needs to skim, skip, scan, or carefully read the material, right? So evaluating any material that has been given to you critically, right? For example, even with it happens with the tech novels that we're reading, even for pleasure reading, what we do is sometimes a line just gets into your mind, it gets into your it gets into your heart, it gets into your mind, it just makes you think. That's the main idea, that it makes you think, it makes you reflect, and you can relate to it sometimes, right? So you just pause, you put down the book, and you think about it, right? Okay, so this is what the novel is about, and this is somehow connected to me as well. This is exactly the feelings that I am going through, right? Or if it helps you in some other way, it helps you think about certain things, that okay, so I have not thought about this particular aspect of my life before like this, so now I could, right? For example, we have talked about investment opportunities, and it has given you a variety. The book has told you about a variety of investment opportunities, so now you're thinking to yourself, which investment opportunity might be a good fit for me, right? And which would be a good fit for my parents or my siblings or anyone. Okay, so you are evaluating critically the material that is there in front of you. If it is an article, you're evaluating it critically, that have you really understood what the article is telling you? Are you clear about the subject? Are you clear about the terms that have been used? Are you clear how it is, or why is it part of your syllabus, and what is it telling you, right? So here are the things that you need to keep in, sorry, need to keep in mind. And this is the process of, or the guidelines for effective reading: defining a purpose, identifying the reading channel, controlling interference, getting the reading of words, or getting to the reading of words and nonverbal symbols, and evaluating the article that is there in front of us critically. Okay, and Komal, the syllabus is online. It is there on the SOL website. Good afternoon, Anjali, Aram, Nikhil. Um, also do not worry about the online classes, offline classes, exams कब होंगे, कैसे होंगे, and all of that. All of the information will reach you in due time. You will be informed from the SOL department of that what whatever about the classes, or about the exams. So don't worry, uh, you will get all the information. Okay, so let's move on to comprehension. Every time whenever we are giving our whenever we have a language paper, you always see comprehension is definitely a part of that paper, right? 30 second. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, comprehension. So what is the effective ways, or how should you read a comprehension? Okay, so read the passage quickly once to get a general idea of the thing. And when you do this, do not be preoccupied with answering particular questions, right? So whenever you have a comprehension as part of your English language paper, what you do is read it first. Read it without any questions in mind. Okay, read it first to understand what it is talking about. Then read the passage slowly and carefully, so you know the details. What is it talking? What are the themes? Who are the characters? If you come across a word you don't understand, try to work the meaning out through the context. Read the sentence again and again if you do not understand the meaning of a particular word. After reading the questions, read the passage again. Look at the questions and work out mentally the location in the passage. where the information required for each answer lies. Do not start writing immediately. The most useful work is done while you make yourself familiar with the passage and the questions. So, what do you need to do? You have a passage in front of you that you will read. Okay, and once you have read the passage, then you will again read it slowly, right? And then you will figure out if there are any questions, or if you do not understand a particular word meaning, right? So you will read it again and again to understand where what the meaning is according to the context that it is placed in. Then you will read the questions that have been asked of you, right? Every passage is followed with the questions in your language paper. So read those questions and have them in your mind while you reread the passage again. And when you're reading the passage, try to answer those questions that have been asked. Okay, then make sure that you understand the questions. Rephrase the questions in simple terms. Very often, the students just glance through the questions without trying to understand their full implication. Consequently, they fail to give complete answers to the questions. And I've noticed this too, that a lot of students, if there are two parts to that question, they end up answering only the first part of the question and they completely forget the second, right? And if a question is asked out of you, is asked to you, what a lot of students end up doing is that they will talk about the summary, they will forget what the question is. If the question is asking about your opinion, then give your opinion. Don't tell what is happening in the paragraph. Do not give us the summary of the paragraph, right? So reread not just the paragraph, but also the questions carefully so that you're able to answer them correctly. Okay, then then make sure what you write is relevant. Very, very important. Answer to the point and then stop. Refer back to the question to make sure that your answer contains the information that is asked for and nothing more. Like I said, a lot of students end up writing the summary of the paragraph, or what they do is they simply copy the sentences that are there in the paragraph as the answer and then pass it off as, you know what, we have answered the question. No, you shouldn't do that. It's absolutely wrong. What is expected out of you as a student is to read the paragraph and then think about it and give your opinion, or write in your own words. Every time a comprehension question says, write in your own words about what you have understood from the paragraph that has been given to you, right? And have a look at what the question is asking. Do not answer more, do not answer less, do not give a short answer, do not give a long answer. Just answer to the point, whatever is been asked out of you, right? Then use your own words as far as possible. However, it may not be always possible to use completely different words when technical terms are involved or words used in the passage are simple enough. But as far as possible, use your own words and structures. The purpose of setting a comprehension exercise is to find out whether a student understands the passage or not. If you merely copy the exact set of words from the passage, you do not show that you understand the passage, right? So of course, the first and the most important thing is that you have to use your own words. You cannot copy from the paragraph and write it and reproduce it as your own. You should not do that. But you sometimes the paragraph contains difficult words, or it contains technical words, and technical words can be used, they can be rewritten as part of your answer, because sometimes they do not have the right or the appropriate synonyms. Okay, so you can use the technical terms that have been used in the paragraph, but if you're answering a question, it should be answered in your own words. Then of course, what you have to do is that you cannot use the same exact sentence structure as well, right? You cannot use the same way the words have been written in the paragraph. You have to write it in your own words. You have to rephrase rephrase it and write a new answer, right? And the purpose of this exercise, the purpose of giving you a comprehension is for you for the examiner to test your reading skills. How well can you read a paragraph that is there in front of you and answer the questions and find the questions on your own, right? So it is a very important component of language learning, right? So whenever a paragraph is given to you, you need to find the questions, sorry, you need to find the answers to the questions, and then you have to rephrase it using your language, and that is what you're tested on, right? And we oftentimes forget that what is the whole point of comprehension, right? Why are we doing this? This is it, that you are being tested on rephrasing, right? You have been tested on how well can you explain the other person in your own words about what you have just read. Then keep to the facts that are given in the passage. You may have a lot of information from various sources on the theme of the passage set for comprehension. Your answer must be based on the facts given in the passage, unless you are directed to give information which is not given in the passage, like giving your opinion, arguments, etc. To emphasize once again, the purpose of comprehension exercises is to show that you understand the given passage and not to show how much you know about the theme from other sources, right? So you have to keep your facts in order. You have to know what the important information is and answer the questions accordingly. You cannot bring information from other passages as well. If you've been given two questions that are based on different passages, do not try to bring information from each other, right? Just focus on the passage that has been asked of you, right? And of course, give your opinion, state your arguments, see what the question is asking you and answer accordingly. Then answer in complete sentences unless you're told not to do so. Sometimes you could present the information in a single word, but you're required to express yourself clearly in good English. That is a complete sentence. And a lot of students make this mistake whenever the question comes, suggest a title for the paragraph that has been given to you, and you end up just writing, for example, you just end up saying environment, right? This is the topic that this is the word that you think best describes the topic. No, as a student, you are expected to write a whole sentence that is the topic that can be suggested, or the theme that can be discussed, or that has been seen in this particular, whatever, etc. passage, or the lines above, or whatever is so and so, quote unquote, right? So you have to write a whole sentence. An appropriate title for the given paragraph is comprehension, right? And a good topic that can anything that you think that is an appropriate topic needs to be written in a proper sentence, right? For example, if they're asking opinion, what do you think about this, is it a yes or a no, and you just write yes, no, you shouldn't write like that. You should write yes and why. So this is why I think, or this is the reason I think that it's like this, or whatever, etc., etc. When you have written your answer, you should always refer back to the questions and check whether your answer is relevant and complete in all aspects. Once you have written all of the once you have answered all of the questions, please read the answers that you have written. If you have time, then definitely reread the paragraph and try to refer to the points that you have answered. Your answers should make sense, and they should have a clear reference to the paragraph that has been given to you. All right. So then we move on to the PSQ 5-hour reading technique, and this particular PSQ 5-hour reading technique is something that you will come across many times in communication theory, right? If you pick any communication book, or you will come across this particular term, that is PSQ 5-hour. So what is PSQ 5-hour? P stands for purpose, First, establish the purpose, that is, whether to understand the main theme or main ideas or figures, or evidence or examples and arguments. Relation method can prompt you to use the reading method that gets what you want in minimum time, and there should be a particular purpose for reading so that you can accomplish your purpose. Right. So whenever you pick a book for reading, whenever you pick an article for reading, or whenever you start reading any article, you are going to state the purpose. Okay. Then survey. Skim, glance over the main features of the place, that is the title, the lead, and the summary paragraph, to find out what ideas, overview of pieces, and questions that are being asked. This is done very fast to get an overview and find out the approach and manner in which the author treats the time. Right. So, for example, if you've been given an assignment and you have been also given an article to read, right? And the article is divided into different subtitles. So the topic is maybe environment, right? So you'll be reading about or pollution, for example, and you'll be reading about air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, noise pollution, etc. So you are reading the titles, you're reading the subtitles, and you're making notes in your own mind, right? You're quickly skimming through the article to know what is expected out of you as a student, and what are your expectations from the article. And your expectations from the article is to have a clearer understanding of the term pollution and the different types of pollution, right? So you have stated your purpose and you have surveyed the article. Now you are moving to question. Compose question which should be answered when the objective is fulfilled, and also ask the question to yourself, by which ensure that you read very well the material. This also can be helpful for your personal interviews. So for example, you have already surveyed and now you have certain questions in mind, and your questions can be related to, so what is water pollution and what are the causing factors, like what are the factors that cause water pollution and how is it different from noise pollution, right? So your questions that you are making up is there at the back of your mind while you are reading the article, right? And it can also help you prepare yourself for the article. Then we move on to PSQ 5R. Now we are looking at the 3 R's. The first R means reading selectively. This type of reading involves to find the answer to your question. But in this type of reading, if the paragraph is interlinked to your answer, then read the whole paragraph data very carefully so that you can create a link. What is your question and what is the detailed answer you can achieve? Right? So reading selectively. What is the question that you have in your mind, or what is the question that follows the comprehension? And whenever you're answering, try to connect it to the main paragraph. Try to connect your own questions to the article that you're reading, or try to connect your answers that you think are the questions that the article is asking you, right? Then recite without looking at the book. Recite your answer to the question using your own words as much as possible. If you cannot do reasonably well, you can look at that section again, but try with a glance at that information. I think we used to do, as students when we were in school, we used to do this a lot, reciting our own answers to prepare ourselves well for the exam, right? So if we were told that this paragraph is important, we used to we used to suggest our own selves, so these are the questions that can come, and then you will recite the answers on your own, keeping the book aside, right? So when you're reciting the answers on your own without looking at the book, then you are basically, giving yourself that confidence that, yes, I know what the text is about. Yes, I know what the article is about, and I can answer the question if there is any related to this particular topic well. Right, then we move on to the third R, that is reduce record. You can write short notes, or you can capture the important sections, questions and answers. Also, you can highlight those paragraphs so that you can recall the already read material, right? So for example, if you're reading an article like we have talked about on pollution, then you can make your own notes, that what is pollution, then different types of pollution, air, noise, soil, right? And and then you can make your own subtitles, write the keywords that you think are important, or you can highlight the subtitles for you, subtext, sorry, sections, subsections. I'm saying subtitles for so long. Subsections, I mean, subsections for your own good, right? So that you can remember what you have read later, right? Subsections. And then reflect. Reflect once again, elaborate the new information so that the retention is increased. This will be helpful to compare with the different categories and also to relate one part with another. This will also help to connect with your knowledge and personal experience. So once you have read the article, sit back and reflect on what have you just studied. You will think about pollution, you will think about the different types of pollution that you have looked at. You will think about the factors that involve in the different pollution, and then what are the significant strategies to overcome these kind of pollutions, right? Overcome strategies of overcome strategies to overcome air pollution, noise pollution, etc., etc. So you are going to reflect on what you have just studied or what you have just read, and then you will review, revise important points, short notes, highlighted paragraphs, etc. Recognize all the points and review whenever is required, and you can recite in your own language, right? So, how are you going to review? You are going to review the notes that you have just made, and the keywords that you have just written, and you will also recite, maybe, you can recite in your own words whatever you have understood, or you can just get hold of your sibling and maybe tell them what you have just studied, right? Oftentimes we do that. We teach our own selves, we teach our friends about what the article is about, or what is the topic that you have as part of your exam, right? So we do a lot of these things, and like I've said, this is something that we all do. It's just that we are, for the first time, we are uh, theorizing it. No, I don't think so. There's some problem in the audio, Kimti. Good afternoon, Fadi. Skimming is when you are skimming for certain information, Kimti, right? When you have something in mind, like for example, I've told you that, if you have to find about the highlights of the match that happened yesterday, right? So you will quickly pick up a newspaper. You'll quickly pick up a newspaper, and then you will find the article that is there in front of you, right? Like the sports page that is there in front of you, and then you'll quickly find that article that says IPL, right? So you're just skimming for that words. And then skimming is like a cursory glance that we do. A cursory glance mean you just quickly read a blah 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 blah. So this one, that one, man of the match was Virat Kohli, and the best bowler was this. So that's skimming, where you're reading as a upar upar se, right? That is skimming. When you're reading upar upar se, when you're not going into the information deeply, right? And then scanning is different. Scanning is, of course, knowing why you're reading, right? You have a certain purpose in mind. You're scanning because you have a certain purpose in mind. Maybe you have to write a review on the on the last night's match, right? And you're reading with a certain level of concentration. Skimming में concentration की जरूरत नहीं है, ऊपर ऊपर से पढ़ते हैं, right? And scanning में concentration की जरूरत है. You have that, maybe you have this question in mind कि I have to review this particular article, right? And you are taking notes. Perhaps you might be taking notes, or you're making mental notes. Okay, so that's skimming and scanning. All right. Recite means when you're reciting something from memory, when you're speaking from memory. We used to do this a lot in school, didn't we? That we used to, like, our teachers used to tell us, why don't you read this poem and then remember it and then recite it without looking at the book, right? So when we are speaking out of, memory. All right. So here are the questions that can come. Like, for example, the comprehension question that is given to you, right? And you have already been told that this is from Ruskin Born, A Long Walk from Bina. And then you have questions. Imagine you're a reporter sent to the, no, this is like a reporter question where you're supposed to interview. Then you are again interviewing, write a public speech. Again, you have a dialogue writing, analyze the difference between the ideas. Yeah. So here, so for example, you have two parts of the question. Analyze the difference between the ideas of the white man, and then can you propose a middle part between? So here, for example, a lot of you do that. You end up just answering this particular question, and you can just end up taking these lines and then just answering it directly using these words. So please don't do that. Always see if it has a two-part question, then answer both of them. And can you propose a middle path? It means that they are asking for your opinion, so it's give your opinion. And now that you're in school, you're no more in school, you're in college, we expect a certain maturity and sincerity from you so that you can give a good opinion, write a good opinion piece, right? And of course paraphrase we'll be doing soon. Okay. And so here are the kind of questions that you can ask. What kind of person do you think Jeev Santhal is? Based on the letter, how would you interpret his value and goals? So again, you've been asked your opinion, right? And your opinion needs to be written. Not, you should not just pick up lines and then just write it in the answer. Then you have letter writing and you have report writing. Okay, this particular question is from the paper that is part of your SOL material, so you can have a look at it yourself too. At the beginning of the story, again, you have these questions. Yeah, so again, you have questions like, hello? Hello? Am I audible? Hello? Yeah, I think there was some. Hello? Yeah. So, yeah, so again, in your own words, what is the significance of the red sky? Why does the old man feel? So, who is also his neighbor? What is the significance of the last paragraph of the story? What does it suggest about human relations? So, here again, your opinion has been asked. So, please be very careful while answering these questions. The question paper is said so that we can test your maturity, your understanding of the language. So please answer appropriately, give your opinion, and read the paragraph closely. Try to understand what has been asked out of you and answer. All right. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought there was some issue with the audio. Okay, so yeah, I think Keemti, what you can do is, Keemti, you can message me on the thing on the Microsoft Teams app, and two, three more of the students can do so that I can share the material. I think our classes will end by next to next week, right? So when I start the last unit, that's unit number 5. I'll try to share as much material I can with you, and like whoever gets the material on Microsoft Teams, you can forward it on your WhatsApp groups or on your Telegram groups or any other groups that you are all a part of. Okay, so you can do that. Uh, yeah. So today, what did we discuss? Recapitulation time. Yeah, so we looked at the process of reading, where we looked at pre-reading activities, reading activities, and post-reading activities. Then we were looking at the guidelines for effective reading, which included defining the purpose, reading, identifying the appropriate reading channel, controlling any kind of interference, reading the words and the non-verbal symbols, evaluating the material critically. Then we looked at how are we supposed to answer the comprehension passage. Then we looked at the PSQ 5R reading techniques, which included purpose, survey, question, and the 5Rs, which include reading selectively, reciting, reducing record, reflecting, and reviewing. Okay, so are there any particular questions? No, Shashank, I have no information regarding this. You will get a mail or any other information that is related to this. It will be uploaded on the SOL website. Which question? I've just I'll share the text with you, Lakshita, so that you know this is from SOL. Wait. So this is from your SOL text. Yeah. Here you go. SOL study material. And right at the end of it, you'll find the question paper. Yeah. Here you go. Okay. So Lakshita, just scroll and you'll find the question paper. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hello.
Yes. Yes, sir. जी सर बताइए. I don't have any information on that. Like I said, the SOL website will upload the information or they'll mail you regarding this. Any other questions? I hope you have downloaded the syllabus and the SOL material from the website. The model paper, like I've shown, Kimti, it has a total of 3 questions, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So there are there are 3 questions which are followed by different questions like letter writing, dialogue writing, speech writing, report writing. So in the meantime, what you can do is you can get hold of a grammar book that maybe you used in school and familiarize yourself with, writing a dialogue, writing a speech. So writing A report. Nikhil, any book that is prescribed by the Delhi University syllabus. AECC, Delhi University syllabus. Anjali, the question paper that I was using um, is part of your SL material. Like if you download the SL material, the question paper is part of that. And you can ask seniors of yours if you know of any to maybe send you the old question paper. Rupali, is entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you. If you want, you can. And if you are getting one, then it should be prescribed by the Delhi University syllabus. Okay, all right. So it's time, and I'll meet you in the next class on Thursday, right? So, no, on Saturday. Yes, today's Thursday. I'll meet you on Saturday. All right. Okay then. Bye bye.